Ready. Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy. Joining me this morning, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good
Good
morning,
morning.
everyone.
I'm like, are we still having the lag, or did you not want to say good morning? I was like, are you there? Are you there?
That was a thoughtful pause.
Oh, okay. um, this morning we're moving on to the codon ring, the ring of purification. So, can you tell us this morning, Hartwell, what codon ring, the ring of purification, encompasses? Like what gene keys and what it is?
Yeah, for this codon ring, we have two that we're going to look at today. So we're going to maybe be a little less crammed in terms of information.
Mm-hmm.
Gene key 13 and gene key 30. Those are our target ones today. And they both relate to the amino acid glutamine. Um, and basically, think of what purification means to you. Um, bef- I don't want to say too much about it, but I just want to put that in your mind. Um, think about that, and then we'll review that theme at the end after we talk about the 13 and the 30. Are you there, Kris? We're having
Yeah,
computer.
we're having some technical difficulties this morning. Sorry, guys. I don't know why it's lagging and why it's dropping and stuff, but hopefully we can make it through this broadcast. Okay, so glutathione, right?
Glutamine.
Glutamine. Okay.
Yeah. So why don't we go on to 13? The reason we're kind of going in order. We started at the 41, and then we're going in the order, but we're picking up the other ones in the ring. So 13 is the next one on from 41 and 19 and then 13. So 13. Oh, what can we say about 13? Each one of them is a whole mythology in its own, but 13 is the journey from discord. This is in the
Mm-hmm.
G center. Gene key 13 is in the G center. This is from discord to empathy by way of discernment. And this gene key is all about listening, or how we don't listen. You
Mm-hmm.
see, um, if you listen to what life is telling you, if you listen and learn from the mistakes that you're making, then well and good. But if you don't, what happens? Because there's a large part of us that, we go through these experiences, but we don't learn from them. We don't listen to what life is telling us. And so this is what
Mm-hmm.
creates the discord in life. This is what messes us up. And like all the shadow frequencies, this is a significant thing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I learned that, but then we do the same thing over and over again. So the
Right.
13 is all about how we don't listen and how
So
we
how do
could.
we listen?
What you do is you, in a sense, um, you realize that you got to get over the confusion between hearing and listening. You might hear something, but you didn't. You might.
It's like reading and
um,
comprehension. So you might read something, but you might not comprehend it.
you heard it, but you weren't listening. Can you?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the echo of that in so many of our conversations, right? I mean, the conversations that people have with
Mm-hmm.
each other in intimate relationships and family relationships. Yeah, you heard me, but you didn't listen. That kind of thing.
Well, it's like,
It didn't
I
register
don't
with
remember
you.
you saying that. Yeah.
Well,
Like,
that's a
yeah,
whole other issue, and it might be
because
connected.
I don't remember.
Yeah, you're breaking up on me. I missed that whole I think you said something good there, but what was it?
Hello, Harlow.
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry, guys, we're having some issues here. We're not sure why for us to do this broadcast. Oh, now you're gone
Hmm.
again. Oh
Yeah, and
no.
you keep
Oh
going on
dear.
me.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm
Oh
here.
no. Oh, there you are. Okay. So we were talking about listening and hearing
Yes.
is where we left off before we got cut off. Yeah.
Well, I think you probably said something good there. Do you remember what it was?
Well, I said it's the same as when somebody's talking and they say, "Well, I don't remember you saying that," and that's because they weren't actually listening. They were hearing what you were saying, but they weren't listening to what you were saying, right?
Exactly. And the way out of that is
Yeah.
basically to realize um, that there's such a big connection between our view of the world and
Mm-hmm.
our emotions. So
Mm-hmm.
once we have that awareness, this in a sense brings forth that idea of the witness consciousness, which you learn as you meditate, right? You develop that witness consciousness so that you can see what's going on. And once you have that space, then you can break free from the shadow of discord, and um, and it will enhance your ability to listen. Um, and that's then when it develops into um, the ability to be discerning, because discernment is the gift.
Oh, so what happens if you also have the channel of deafness that you're not supposed to listen to certain things? That's an interesting thing to contemplate.
It is. And as we go through these, you will start to feel like there's repeating themes or
Mm-hmm.
overlapping themes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, what's the difference between discernment and judgment?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Or what's the difference between intolerance and judgment and discord? So
Mm-hmm.
there are overlappish feelings to these, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it pays big dividends um, if we can contemplate these different
Mm-hmm.
things. Because, for instance, judgment is the shadow of the 18th gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 18 and I have 43, which is deafness. And I have, some of these overlappish things. So it begins to round out your understanding of self. But then if you look at the gifts and the cities associated with these things, it allows you to tease out and feel these different universal threads.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but once we have that space through discernment, then we can start to listen more deeply to our lives. We can demystify the past because we're no longer so tightly bound with an emotional reaction pattern. And then we can open up to be able to be discerning in life. And we start to listen and we start to hear. And our listening can become so deep that there becomes no difference between the the speaker and the listener.
It's almost
And
like
that is
walking
when,
meditation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when we start to open up to the influence of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
which is this gift of the city.
Mm-hmm.
People who have a strong capacity for discernment and maybe even, are opening up to the energy of empathy, they can be so gifted at listening that just to be listened to by them heals you. So it's a
What a
beautiful
gift.
thing. Yeah. Yeah, these are all incredible gifts, all of them. Um, so listening through love is kind of a keynote for the 13.
Mm-hmm.
That ability. There was a beautiful, beautiful book that I read and have reread by Taylor Caldwell, and it was called The Listener. And it was all about this theme of holding space, this deep listening presence that has no judgment, that allows for people to heal, which is one of the bedrocks of
Mm-hmm.
certain forms of counseling. So, shall we talk about the 30?
Yeah, that would be. I was just going to say, tell us about the remaining gene key.
Yeah. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about 30. 30 is related to the solar plexus and digestion. And it is a journey from
Mm-hmm.
desire to rapture. Desire is the shadow, rapture is the city, by way of lightness, the gift of lightness. Um, Celestial fire is kind of the bedrock of this, and this basically is the awareness that at the shadow level, we are continually propelled by our desire into a state of suffering because so many of our desires do not get realized. There's this disappointment that arises from that. And so here we have this desire and it's disappointed. We have this desire and it's disappointed at the shadow level, the fear level. We wonder if our desires will ever be realized. And this is one of the great themes of human life is that, you know, what's the point of having desire because it just leads to suffering? Or even if that desire is satisfied, there's
Right.
always more desires, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's never ending. So
Mm-hmm.
as you enter deeply, it's kind of the old Buddhist saying, life is suffering. So as you enter into, when you start to look, when you've gone through enough cycles of desire and disappointment and suffering, the Buddhism statement that life is suffering makes a lot more sense. And if you surrender into that, if you surrender deeply into that, then something shifts. You start to be less afraid and you move out of the fear frequency that desire is, and you move into a sense of lightness, where distrust in life gives way to trust. You begin to realize that you become less attached to the various things you've been desiring, and you realize that your suffering matures, if I could say that. Is that a weird thing to say? Um, the nature of desire and how it propels us into life becomes a mystery. And then there's a lightness that is born out of that. And at the highest level, this becomes the yoga of devotion. It becomes Rumi says this a lot in his poetry. He's always talking about burning up in the longing of desire, having that desire. That desire matures and it becomes a desire for connection with God. So, and then it dissolves us eventually into this energy of devotion, which is, the rapture of the city. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Oh,
it does. I'm so sorry, guys, for this like really choppy session today, but it appears that we have an unstable Wi-Fi connection, so we keep dropping and picking things up. But hopefully, you're catching most of that. So, is there anything else
well,
that you want to say about how these two gene keys relate?
Yeah, so we need to talk about the purification theme.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who are very aware people, you will begin to see, yeah, I can see how that would purify me. It's cycle of desire, disappointment, suffering. Eventually it all shifts us, it purifies us. Or that cycle of discord, not listening, trying to listen, not listening, not hearing, keeping going, and this space opens up in the gift frequencies, so um, we got to realize that the greater part of human experience is non-essential to us, but we have to go through it. We have to go through these vast evolutionary cycles because only through doing that will we be purified.
Mm-hmm.
As Richard Rudd says, such purification can only take place through the shadow frequency, since the shadow frequency provides the raw material for higher states of consciousness. So we can't just skip the steps. We can't just shift. We can't, all
Yeah.
of us have to deal with our shadow.
Well,
Um,
it's like our mentor says. If you don't know it, then you have to have context. You have to be able to, see the other side of things to give you context as to what it is. Otherwise, you don't know what you're in, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to absorb that the suffering from all those cycles that desire has pushed us into, and all the discord that has arisen from our not listening. So eventually we become less attached to our desires, to our emotions, which cause us to feel discord. Um, and it matures over time
Mm-hmm.
because enlightenment is the end point for all of us,
Mm-hmm.
right? We know the end game, I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the great value to me of the gene keys is like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I know the end game.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's on the other side of what I'm struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
And so now maybe I can relax and
Mm-hmm.
my surrender something so that I might, shift out of the shadow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's to if you're not aware that you're in shadow. I think we talked about this before when I was asking you about Venus sequences, and I was like, I know I do it. I just don't know why I do it. And it wasn't until it made sense that it's part of my design, right? Part of my line that I can then look at it and try to overcome it. But if you don't
Yes.
understand it, like if you just say, oh, that's me, and this is what people do, right? Oh, that's just me. That's how I am. They don't try to look at it and say, well, why am I like that? Right. And if you understand the purpose behind it, then you can actually shift it and then work towards enlightenment. But
Yes. I
yeah.
mean, in your case,
Mm-hmm.
you're designed to ask a lot of whys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of your ways in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that that way of entering in would not be the same for everyone
Right.
because um, it all depends on what your shadow is and what your particular flavor of suffering is.
Yeah.
And so, but if you have a curiosity, a
Mm-hmm.
willingness to look at what's going on that I feel this way and I feel this way repeatedly, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
seem to be able to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That starts an inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
And even I might be using words that are biased to my own design.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always going to be a way in, and that way in is through your suffering. That way
Mm-hmm.
in is through looking at the things in your life that repeatedly show up as
Mm-hmm.
disharmonious relationship to life and to the people
Mm-hmm.
around you.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
if you can, in a sense, lessen your fear
Mm-hmm.
about self-examination, and then you can get the space from your own pain.
Yeah. Exactly. It's the fear of judging ourselves too, because when we start looking, then we start judging ourselves and start going, oh well, you're so stupid, and why do you do that, and like and I think that sometimes we're hard on ourselves and other people are on us because they see us differently than we see ourselves, right? Mhm. So,
Yes, and I mean, remember that judgment. There are people who have they have a greater tendency to judge the outside world than themselves, and then there's those people who introject and judge themselves. So judging either way is something that we can, in a sense, okay, we can gain the awareness to kind of drop the judgment
mhm.
and begin
Yeah,
to, I mean, everybody suffers.
yeah. It's
And
like,
yes.
oh, I was just gonna say, Dragon is saying facing the shadow is a challenge. Yeah, it's a challenge for all of us. It's it's what we're here to do, right? To work through and make ourselves that pure heart, that pure vessel, that that which we can become.
Yes. But
Mhm.
the pure vessel, I
Mhm.
think the vessel that you're talking about, Kris, is built on the acceptance of our shadow. There is no way to get to that place of lightness, that place of
Mhm.
radiance, that place, I can't even remember the word you just used. There's no way to get there except through the acceptance of your own shadow.
Mhm.
Um, so this is why shadow work is absolutely crucial.
Mhm.
We
Exactly.
can't we can't really enter into the mystery of life on any kind of real or deep or significant level
Mhm.
without claiming our humanness, our
Mhm.
suffering, our so judge yourself all you want, but that's just going to be a barrier. There's
Mhm.
no person out there without a shadow.
Mhm. So, with that, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up? We're a little over because of all the lags and stuff, but or do you want to tell us about what's up next week?
Next up is the Ring of the Whirlwind.
Ooh.
And this might require us, I'm not sure how much time this is going to require,
Mm-hmm.
because the Ring of the Whirlwind is made up of only two gates, and they represent where the evolution of humanity is occurring right now. So
Mm-hmm.
they are at the very center of what is evolving and what is pushing us to the next evolution.
Well, that's
So
awesome. We'll look forward to that one. Hopefully, everybody can join us and we don't have all these technical difficulties next week. But with that, we're going to sign off and say goodbye. Thank you for joining us this morning. Have a wonderful day. Try to stay warm, and we're getting close to Christmas. So, everybody, have a wonderful day. God bless. Bye,
bye-bye.
Harwell.